Listen, Steven Spielberg has directed some of the most brutal, gut-wrenching war films ever made. But here's the bombshell. Even Spielberg himself admits there are only 7 movies that nail historical accuracy so perfectly that he considers them authentically devastating. These aren't the typical glorified war epics you've seen 1,000 times. They're the rare masterpieces that veteran soldiers actually wept watching because they finally saw their war depicted with zero compromise and zero Hollywood polish. Stick around because number 1 changed how the entire industry thinks about depicting combat on film. Number 1. Saving Private Ryan, 1998. Steven Spielberg's own 1998 masterpiece remains the gold standard for authentic World War II filmmaking. Spielberg has publicly stated that his entire approach to this film centered on honoring the reality of what soldiers actually experienced during D-Day. He interviewed multiple World War II veterans during pre-production, absorbing every detail about their psychological state, their fears, their brotherhood. The result was that opening sequence. $12 million spent across 4 grueling weeks with 1,500 extras and actual amputees participating in the shoot. Spielberg refused to storyboard it, instead allowing the carnage to unfold naturally in front of the cameras. Veterans didn't just praise it, they wept. One soldier famously said the only thing missing was the smell. The film earned $582 million worldwide, but Spielberg's proudest achievement wasn't the box office. It was that his film became mandatory viewing for soldiers and veterans because it was the first time Hollywood got the authentic horror of combat exactly right. The entire movie reflects Spielberg's documented philosophy about war filmmaking. He stated that soldiers don't think of themselves as heroes, and the minute anybody presumes they are, they lose everything. Spielberg's personal connection runs deep. Number 2. Dunkirk, 2017. Christopher Nolan's 2017 evacuation epic became the second film Spielberg has recognized as achieving near-perfect authenticity. Spielberg's philosophy about war films centers on practical effects over CGI, on documentary realism over Hollywood spectacle. Nolan's Dunkirk embodies every principle Spielberg has championed. The evacuation was one of the most harrowing military disasters in British history. 300,000 soldiers trapped, surrounded, about to be annihilated. Nolan essentially restaged the entire evacuation and set cameras around it rather than faking it with green screens and digital trickery. Shot using practical aviation effects, real water, real beaches, real chaos. No CGI dogfights that look polished and clean. Instead, Nolan creates something raw and suffocating. The film unfolds across 3 timelines: land, sea, and air. The cinematography mimics the eyeline of an actual soldier witnessing these catastrophic events. Hans Zimmer's score pounds like an accelerated heartbeat, creating relentless tension. Dunkirk veterans praised the film's accuracy with shocking intensity. They didn't recognize specific moments as inaccurate because Nolan understood that authenticity isn't about getting every detail perfect. It's about capturing the psychological weight of survival. The production cost $150 million, but every frame screams authenticity. Spielberg has acknowledged that this is exactly how modern war films should be made. Number 3. Come and See, 1985. This 1985 Belarusian film represents something Spielberg has studied extensively: the absolute limits of what cinema can achieve in depicting war's true horror. Directed by Ilham Klimov, Come and See is a hallucinatory nightmare that follows a teenage boy's descent into madness as he experiences Nazi occupation of Belarus. Spielberg has acknowledged in interviews that this film achieves what most directors only dream about: pure, unadulterated authenticity. The production was deliberately brutal on its cast. Child actor Alexei Kravchenko wasn't acting. He was experiencing actual trauma on set. Explosions detonated nearby. Real fire consumed buildings. The surrounding chaos wasn't simulated. Spielberg recognized that Klimov understood something fundamental about war filmmaking. You cannot fake the look in a person's eyes when they've witnessed genuine horror. The film became something between a documentary and a fever dream. Shaky camera work, desaturated colors, reverse effects that make explosions feel even more disorienting. Veterans of World War II have described watching Come and See as the closest cinema has ever come to recreating the actual psychological experience of combat. The film contains some of the most disturbing imagery ever captured on film. Not because it's gratuitous, because it's historically accurate to what soldiers actually saw. Number 4. Schindler's List, 1993. Spielberg's own 1993 Holocaust masterpiece stands as his most personal statement on war's reality. Shot almost entirely in black and white, the film follows Oskar Schindler's transformation from opportunist businessman to reluctant savior. Spielberg has stated repeatedly that this film required a completely different philosophy than typical war movies. There's almost no traditional combat. Instead, there's bureaucratic evil. There's the quiet desperation of people trying to survive within a system designed to exterminate them. Ralph Fiennes' portrayal of Nazi officer Amon Goth became one of cinema's most terrifying villains, specifically because Spielberg refused to make him cartoonish. Fiennes based his performance on interviews with actual Nazi officers, creating something authentically monstrous. The film won 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. But Spielberg has acknowledged his proudest achievement was that the film became a teaching tool about the Holocaust. Veterans, survivors, and historians embraced it as authentic because Spielberg never sensationalized the story. Liam Neeson's Schindler is flawed, sometimes unlikable, but undeniably human. Ben Kingsley's Itzhak Stern provides the moral compass. Together, they depict what authentic historical behavior actually looks like. Spielberg spent 10 years researching and developing this project. He interviewed survivors. He studied historical documents. Number 5. Das Boot, 1981. Wolfgang Petersen's 1981 German submarine masterpiece earned Spielberg's respect as the most claustrophobic, psychologically authentic war film ever made. Released in a 2-hour theatrical cut and later expanded to a 3-hour director's cut, Das Boot achieved something radical. It depicts war from the German perspective without glorifying the Nazi regime. The film follows the crew of the U-96, an actual German submarine that existed during World War II. Petersen built 2 full-scale replicas of the vessel to capture the suffocating reality of underwater warfare. Actors trained with actual German submariners. They learned the technical language, the routines, the psychological breaking points. Spielberg has referenced Das Boot when discussing how to authentically portray soldiers who are technically enemies. The film humanizes the German crew without excusing Nazi ideology. These are young men, many terrified, many disillusioned, trapped inside a metal tube heading towards certain death. The film was shot so authentically that it influenced how subsequent war films approached enemy combatants. No dehumanization, no propaganda, just the raw reality of soldiers experiencing warfare. The production faced enormous logistical challenges. Filming inside replicas of a submarine required extreme claustrophobia. Actors actually felt the psychological toll of confinement. Petersen refused to use green screen or cinematic tricks. Everything was built practically. Number 6. 1917, 2019. Sam Mendes's 2019 World War I epic brought Spielberg's principles of practical filmmaking to a new generation. The entire film is edited together to appear as one continuous take, creating a 2-hour immersive experience through trench warfare. No cuts, no relief, no escape. The technical achievement is staggering, but what impressed Spielberg most was the historical authenticity embedded within the technical innovation. The production meticulously recreated the differences between British and German trenches. German trenches were deeper, more heavily reinforced, more strategically advanced. Mendes captured that with startling precision. The film follows 2 soldiers tasked with delivering an order across no man's land to stop a doomed offensive. What sounds like a simple premise becomes a nightmare of mud, death, and despair. Roger Deakins' cinematography creates something almost beautiful amid the horror. Golden light filtering through smoke, grim realism mixed with compositional elegance. Spielberg has acknowledged that Mendes understood how to balance cinematic beauty with historical accuracy. The production used practical effects for every explosion, every gunshot. Haze and smoke from real explosives filled trenches. Water was genuinely muddy and cold. Actors spent weeks in those conditions. The film cost $85 million and earned $405 million globally. Number 7. The Thin Red Line, 1998. Terrence Malick's 1998 Pacific War Meditation earned Spielberg's respect as the most psychologically authentic war film ever made, despite taking a completely different approach than traditional combat cinema. The film adapts James Jones's novel about the Battle of Guadalcanal. But this isn't a traditional war movie. Malick uses voiceover narration, philosophical musings, and nature imagery to explore war's existential horror. The film doesn't storyboard combat. Instead, it weaves together personal moments, combat fragments, and philosophical questioning. Spielberg has publicly acknowledged that Malick achieved something he spent decades pursuing. The film captures not what war looks like, but what war feels like. The internal experience of soldiers grappling with mortality, brotherhood, and the senselessness of combat. The cast includes dozens of major actors in unexpectedly brief roles. Sean Penn, Jim Caviezel, Woody Harrelson, John Cusack, George Clooney, Nick Nolte. Malick cast them specifically to create heterogeneity among the soldiers. These aren't a unified ensemble. They're individuals thrown together by circumstance and fear. The film earned $260 million worldwide. Critical reception was mixed initially, but historians and war veterans embraced it as authentically depicting the Guadalcanal campaign. Malick interviewed veterans for months during development. He studied battle reports, personal letters, and diaries. So there you have it, 7 films that represent the absolute peak of authentic war cinema. Not all of them are obvious blockbusters. Some are deeply flawed. Some are devastatingly difficult to watch, but every single one of them respects the reality of what soldiers actually experienced. Now here's where things get controversial in the comments. Are we actually committed to showing war as it is, or have we compromised authenticity for entertainment value? And most importantly, which of these 7 films shook you the most? Drop your answer in the comments and let's start the debate, because honestly, after 3 decades of war cinema, we still haven't figured out how to tell these stories as powerfully as these masterpieces did.